clash of faiths, kingdoms, and ambitions, the Crusades were more than a series of wars. They were a saga of zeal, betrayal, and conquest that would alter the course of history. Join us today as we journey back to the medieval world, where knights, kings, and warriors marched under holy banners towards the lands of the East, driven by promises of salvation, glory, and riches. This is the story of the Crusades, a tale of alliances and rivalries that forever reshaped the world. The story of the Crusades. Chapter 1. Call to Arms, 1095 to 1096. In the year 1095, a powerful call echoed across Europe. Pope Urban II, speaking at the Council of Clermont, urged Christians to take up arms and reclaim the Holy Land from Muslim rule. With fiery rhetoric, he promised salvation to those who would take the cross and join this holy cause. The response was immediate and fervent. Thousands of men and women, nobles and peasants alike, vowed to journey to the east, marking the beginning of what would come to be known as the First Crusade. Fueled by a mix of faith, adventure, and the allure of wealth, a vast army of crusaders gathered, eventually making their way through the treacherous routes to Constantinople. The Byzantine Emperor Alexios I cautiously welcomed them, hoping they might help reclaim lost territory. The First Crusade had begun, and with it, a new chapter in the relationship between the Christian and Muslim worlds. Chapter 2, the First Crusade and the Fall of Jerusalem, 1096 to 1199. In the year 1096, the Crusaders embarked on their arduous journey through Asia Minor, facing ambushes, starvation, and disease. By the time they reached the Holy Land, only a fraction of their original numbers remained, but their resolve was unbroken. After besieging and capturing key cities like Antioch, they set their sights on Jerusalem, the ultimate goal of their mission. On a scorching day in July of 1099, the Crusaders breached the walls of Jerusalem. What followed was a brutal massacre of the city's Muslim and Jewish inhabitants, marking the end of the First Crusade in blood and fire. In the aftermath, the Crusaders established a series of Christian states in the Levant, including the Kingdom of Jerusalem, marking the beginning of a fragile foothold in the Holy Land. Chapter 3, the Second Crusade and the Loss of Edessa, 1144 to 1149. As the years passed, the Crusader states faced constant threats from neighboring Muslim territories. In 1144, the county of Edessa, one of the first Crusader states, fell to the Muslim forces under Imad ad-Din Zengi. News of Edessa's fall shook the Christian world, and Pope Eugene III called for a new crusade, the Second Crusade, to reclaim the lost territory. Led by King Louis VII of France and Emperor Conrad III of Germany, the Crusaders once again marched to the Holy Land. However, the Second Crusade was plagued by poor planning, lack of coordination, and devastating defeats. The Crusaders failed to reclaim Edessa, and the campaign ended in failure, sowing disillusionment and marking a significant setback for Christian forces. Chapter 4, the Rise of Saladin and the Third Crusade, 1169 to 1192. In the year 1169, a new leader rose in the Muslim world, Saladin, the Sultan of Egypt and Syria. Charismatic and wise, Saladin united much of the Muslim world and set his sights on reclaiming Jerusalem from Christian rule. In 1187, he defeated the Crusader forces at the Battle of Hattin, capturing Jerusalem soon after and sending shockwaves through Europe. In response, Pope Gregory VIII called for a new crusade, the Third Crusade, to recover the Holy City. Led by some of Europe's most powerful monarchs, including King Richard the Lionheart of England, King Philip Augustus of France, and Emperor Frederick Barbarossa of the Holy Roman Empire, the Crusaders journeyed to the east, determined to reclaim Jerusalem. Although Richard and Saladin would engage in a series of legendary battles, the Crusaders ultimately failed to retake Jerusalem. However, a truce was reached in 1192, allowing Christian pilgrims safe passage to the city. Chapter 5. The Fourth Crusade and the Sack of Constantinople, 1202 to 1204. In the year 1202, Pope Innocent III called for yet another crusade, intending to strike at the heart of Muslim power in Egypt as a pathway to reclaiming Jerusalem. However, the Fourth Crusade took an unexpected and devastating turn. Lacking funds, the Crusaders struck a deal with the Venetian Republic to provide transportation in exchange for assistance in a military campaign. This arrangement eventually led them to Constantinople, the capital of the Byzantine Empire. In a shocking twist, the Crusaders turned on their Christian allies, sacking Constantinople in 1204. The city, one of the wealthiest and most culturally vibrant in the medieval world, was plundered and left in ruins. The Fourth Crusade failed to reach the Holy Land, but left a lasting scar on East-West relations and weakened the Byzantine Empire, contributing to its eventual decline. Chapter 6. The Children's Crusade, 1212. In 1212, a peculiar movement swept through Europe. Thousands of young children, driven by visions and religious fervor, began to march toward the Holy Land, believing their innocence and purity would achieve what seasoned warriors could not. Known as the Children's Crusade, this tragic episode ended in disaster, as many children perished from hunger, disease, or fell victim to unscrupulous merchants who sold them into slavery. Though not officially sanctioned, the Children's Crusade left a haunting reminder of the fervor and desperation that the Crusades had inspired in medieval Europe. Chapter 7. The Fifth and Sixth Crusades, 1218 to 1229. In 1218, Pope Innocent III launched the Fifth Crusade, aiming to capture the Egyptian city of Damietta as a strategic entry point to the Holy Land. The Crusaders initially captured Damietta, but were forced to abandon it after a failed campaign against Cairo. The Fifth Crusade, like so many before it, ended in defeat. A decade later, Emperor Frederick II of the Holy Roman Empire embarked on the Sixth Crusade, this time using diplomacy instead of warfare. In a surprising turn of events, Frederick negotiated with the Sultan of Egypt and successfully regained Jerusalem and other holy sites through a treaty in 1229. Despite its peaceful resolution, the arrangement was short-lived. Christian control over Jerusalem would soon falter again. Chapter 8. The Seventh and Eighth Crusades, 1248 to 1270. By the mid-1300s, the Crusader spirit was waning. King Louis IX of France led the Seventh Crusade in 1248, targeting Egypt, but his forces were defeated, and Louis himself was captured, only to be released after a heavy ransom was paid. Despite this failure, Louis embarked on an Eighth Crusade in 1270, focusing on Tunisia, but he died of illness shortly after arriving. His campaigns symbolized the end of an era, as enthusiasm for crusading diminished across Europe. Chapter 9. The Fall of the Crusader States, 1391. The last Crusader stronghold, the city of Acre, fell to the Mamluks in 1391. With Acre's fall, Christian presence in the Holy Land was effectively ended, bringing nearly 2 centuries of crusades to a close. The era of crusading, once marked by fervent zeal and lofty ambitions, ended with the Crusader states lost, and Europe's influence in the East largely diminished. From the sands of Jerusalem to the shores of Europe, the Crusades left behind a legacy of ambition, faith, and tragedy. Though the Crusader states have long since faded, the echoes of those wars continue to shape history, influencing everything from art to religious dialogue to modern geopolitics. Thank you for joining us as we ventured into this turbulent era. Until next time, remember, the lessons of history are written not just in triumph, but in the struggles, dreams, and failures of those who lived it.